Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
PD Beats here from Popternative, speaking to Andy Hirsch about Winning Time, the Rise of the Lakers Dynasty, which is currently streaming on HBO and HBO Max. Welcome to the show, man. It's good to see you.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here.
It's pretty crazy because obviously, you know, the show is about sports and the show is about basketball. It's about one of the greatest sports teams of all time with this Lakers team. But there's a lot that happens that they show in the show off the court and a lot of things about life and finding yourself in important issues. So what's it like being part of a show that in one regard is about sports, but in the other regard is not about sports at all? I feel like that's an interesting situation.
I absolutely agree. I think anytime you have a show that's going to have legs, it's got to transcend what its subject is. You don't have to be a huge fan of advertising to love Mad Men or a big meth fan to love Breaking Bad. Yep. And hopefully that's the case with Winning Time, that it's about a lot more than just a basketball team.
And it's one of those things too where, and I think the trailer, Andy, did a really good job with this one as well, because of the fact that with a team that had so many like storylines and so many amazing accolades like on the court, there's bound to be a lot of stuff happening like off the court too, right? With the magnitude of everything.
Absolutely. And all the things that happened in that first 1979-80 season, it's, you know, Dr. Buss buys the club, Magic and Bird enter the league, they have a new coach, and on and on and on. You couldn't write a script for that. It's just unbelievable, all the things that happened, and you know, to go from A to Z, beginning, end of the season, and where they end up, it's unbelievable. So there's a lot there.
Is it also a little bit of a cool opportunity? And, you know, you might not cross paths with all of them. I think that's kind of a little bit of misconception with ensemble cast. I mean, this is just like, the cast is just amazing for this. There's so many characters, but there's so many things happening that a lot of characters don't cross paths. But what's it like being part of a show with like this ensemble cast specifically, Andy?
It's an unbelievable cast. I mean, good. Top to bottom. I mean, you have all these award winners and you know, Academy Award winners and Emmys and Tonys, and we have 2 Pulitzer Prize winning writers who are acting in the cast.
Yeah.
And then you have a lot of working actors and, you know, people who you may not know, you're kind of like, oh yeah, I kind of know them. And then there's this whole group of newcomers that are amazing. It also happens to be one of the kindest groups I've ever worked with. It's so just good. A blast.
Yeah. You're
right though, because it's such a huge ensemble, I haven't even met everyone yet.
Exactly. Yeah. Is that a misconception sometimes with ensemble cast though, where like you might bump into someone, they were like, wow, you worked on like the Batman or like Winning Time, right? Like what was it like working with Jason Segel or something? You're like, oh, I didn't have scenes with him, right? Is there a misconception there a little bit with the bigger the cast? You might not bump into anyone at all sometimes.
I think it's always different. Also, it was a pandemic. So they weren't able to have like, oh, there's a rap party, or let's get together at this bar. You know what I mean? There's so many things that were handcuffed by the pandemic.
Yeah.
So when you were able to like hang out in the trailer while you're getting your makeup done or you're on set with someone, I think initially everybody was just so excited to be working and to be seeing other human beings. It was amazing.
I know. I want you to talk a little bit about your character. I was going to throw you a fastball down the middle to tee you up to kind of explain who your character is. But I'm going to set you up for an alley-oop, you know what I mean? And then you can finish the rest. But, you know, obviously, you know, the Lakers, there's a lot of players. There's a lot of the players in the show. So there's the athlete component of things. Obviously, people, when they think of this team and the NBA, they think of the business and the logistic perspective of how this whole thing ran and how they dealt with this amazing team in the 80s. What's it like playing a character from the like who's like obviously part of the logistic business perspective of stuff?
Well, David Stern was just an incredible human being who transformed the league from a struggling, you know, finals on tape delay league to an international juggernaut. And that happened during the 30 years he was commissioner. But just like the show is an origin story for so many people, it is for him too, in a way, because in 1979, he's just joined the league. He's not the commissioner yet, but he has all these ideas. So it's kind of cool to watch everybody grow.
Yeah, it is. It's so cool to see that. What was the research like? Like, was it in depth? Was it
Absolutely? I mean, I've been really lucky. I've played a lot of real people, and I find it fascinating.
Is it hard?
Well, there's a different responsibility depending on who you're playing. If you're playing Magic, you got to look exactly like him. Quincy's incredible. He's got to have that like special twinkle in his eye, and he does. I mean, he's amazing. For like John C. Reilly, who's killing it in every way. What a complex, fantastic performance. But most people don't really care what Dr. Buss looked like or what his voice sounded like. So David Stern's kind of in that range there too. If you're a family member or a huge fan of the NBA, you'd be like, oh yeah, that is the mustache he had back in 1979. But I think my biggest responsibility is to capture his spirit, his intelligence, and his heart. And that's what I'm going for. I also am trying to capture what he sounds like, what he looks like, but it's not quite as important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy. That's so interesting you say that too, because there's so many like adaptations and people like on biopics, right? And sometimes you're like, oh, they don't look as much as I thought they would with this person. But yeah, sometimes it's not about that at all.
Right. Yeah. And every single depiction has its own set of challenges and kind of not requirements, but that's not really the right word, but priorities of what you really need to work on. So I'm always going to try to get what the guy looks like and sounds like if there's information, and there's tons on David Stern. Yeah. Sadly, we shot the pilot toward the end of 2019 before the pandemic, and then we didn't shoot episode 2 until April of last year. Mm-hmm. And in the interim, sadly, he passed away.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
It's really sad that it usually takes a death for everybody to write and talk about someone in the most glowing terms. Yeah. So before the pandemic, I still had a lot of material, interviews and articles and what he said and what people said about him. But after he passed, it was truly remarkable what people said and wrote. And that was a treasure trove for me in terms of playing him.
It's so true. Yes, I remember that. I remember that. Was it I'm trying to think the month. Was it close?
He passed away January 1st, 2020.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It was right after Christmas. I remember that. Yeah. It was like, I remember that. Absolutely. No, it's really amazing to see your performance too. Like I have a chance to watch a lot of them, right? Like in advance, like you do a great job. Seriously.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. It's really important that I get them right.
Is it? Yeah. But is it weird too to like, are you able to watch yourself like on screen? Like some people don't, right? So I'm wondering.
Yeah, I am now. And I think it took a while to be able to kind of just step back and try to just watch it without, being too critical and watching every moment.
Yeah.
But like David Stern's featured in this upcoming episode 8, and I'm really curious to watch it, so.
Absolutely. Yeah, he is. No, and like I said, I had the privilege just to watch it before it's out, which is a pretty cool perk, I will say. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Yeah, but I want to watch it so I can talk to you about it. You know what I mean? Like,
well, we'll talk again next week.
Top on the Instagram Live. I've introduced this show, Andy, to a lot of my friends who are not really big sports fans or basketball fans. Were you prepared for, because we talked about the beginning, there's a lot of aspects of it that like don't really focus on the sports, focuses on other things as well. Were you prepared for this possibility of like sports fans and non-sport fans watching Winning Time, Andy?
I was hoping. Yeah. And I have a few people in my life, friends and family, who aren't sports fans, and they're kind of my barometer.
Yep.
And they're enjoying it. So that makes me really happy that hopefully other non-sports fans are too.
It's funny because I remember like the mockumentary style of it. It was like, it wasn't a secret. Like it was announced. Like I remember reading about it, that it was going to be like mockumentary style, but then I started watching it. I totally forgot. So it kind of threw me off guard when like he started talking to the camera, John C. Reilly.
I love the storytelling I'm sorry, I can't think of the word. You know, the direct address to the camera.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it just opens up so many possibilities, and it's fun and it's unpredictable. And I think the style of Winning Time as a show kind of matches the Showtime era Lakers and their style on the court. And I think that's not a coincidence. I think they're going for that. And I think it's great. And I think it's appropriate.
That, what you just said, might have been like, they need to take that sound bit and like use that in any like promotion of Winning Time. That's so true. But it was the mockumentary style of it, like you just said, it adds, in my opinion, a layer of complexity, right? To like the watching it as a viewer, basically. And I feel like that Lakers team was very complex in many ways.
Absolutely. And I mean, all the relationships and the injuries and the bike accident and the coaching changes, and
coaching changes were massive. Were you happy
crazy
that they were really showing that a lot? Because we weren't sure. There's so much I could talk about. I was hoping they were going to show the coaching stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because again, so many origin stories, and you see like, you know, the young Pat Riley, you know, Adrian Brody is just amazing.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's not the guy we know.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to watch people grow. So it's fantastic.
I feel like that's the biggest challenge. You're making a show about the Showtime Lakers, and it's like, where do you start? What do you put in? What do you keep? Like, there's so much.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm really glad that they took a full season to do this 1970 and 1980. They didn't try to just like get to something else because it's really it's a table setter season.
Yeah, it is. Well, I feel like season one of a lot of shows, and this is in a unique situation because we're new to the season one of Winning Time. We're new to the characters for Winning Time, but we're not new to these characters, right?
Absolutely.
Like we know them. That's unique too, if you think about it.
Absolutely. It's, you know, to have the source material be, you know, a nonfiction book, but to right up front say, look, this is based on it, and we're going to play with stuff for dramatic purposes to make the most interesting show. But everyone who created the show, they're huge NBA and Laker fans, and it's a love letter. So I know if it were me and somebody's telling my story and I'm not a part of it, I'm going to be nervous. But if I know they're doing it with love, I might give them a little more leeway.
I totally agree. No, and it's great. You all did such a great job. I love watching it. It's just filmed amazing too. Shout out to the cinematography team. Like we have to. Like
they're incredible.
It's so crazy. And Andy, this was a blast. Thank you so much for coming on Popternative.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so they can watch. We talked about at the beginning. Winning Time is on HBO and HBO Max. So they can watch it. And where can people follow you on social media to keep up to date with everything? Is there like an Instagram account they can keep up to date with things, or?
Yeah. I'm on. I'm new to the gram.
Yeah.
As Andy Hirsch official, I think.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, it's Andy Hirsch and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.